الله بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. We'll leave the quiz for later, inshallah, until other people join. Uh, so today we are at page 212, the subject of starting the verses of the Quran. So let me share my screen. Um, Hopefully you can see it. It's good. So obviously starting the Quran, we study the subject of uh, um stopping last week. So now we're going to discuss the subject of starting. So obviously with starting, we have the same options almost. So we have the voluntary starting and we have the testing starting. So the testing starting, we'll take some examples later. The voluntary starting, however, we have also two options. Um, this time we are calling them real start and additional start. So the real start is actually the one where you're starting the recitation, whether in the salah or otherwise you're starting the reading. So that's the first time you start reading with the ta'awud and the basmala. Um, so in this case, we have two types. We have one allowed, we have one which is not allowed. The one which is allowed, if you check page 212, the second half, that's the one where the meaning and the grammar has no relationship with the verse before. So the beginnings of the surahs, for example, would qualify, but also sometimes within the surah, if you're starting a new subject, such as the example in Surah Hud, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ. So in this case, you're starting a new topic altogether. The second type, which is not allowed, is where there is a connection in the meaning. Right? So you're talking about the story of Musa alayhi salam or the story of Yusuf alayhi salam or anything that has continuation with the ayahs before, then you cannot start from the middle of the story because it will confuse people and it will send wrong messages. The additional starting, however, that happens after you started. So you might have stopped in the same sitting. For example, you have a group of people reading or in the same salah, the first rak'ah or second rak'ah, something like that. Then in this case, you have multiple phases. You have the one which is not allowed, which is what we call qabih or ugly. And then we have the allowed ones. Now you see the translation I've changed here as well because it has a very similar meaning difference to the stopping. So the tam, we're calling it perfect. Instead of complete, we're calling it perfect. The kafi, we're calling it sufficient, adequate instead of sufficient. And the hasan, we're actually calling it acceptable instead of sufficient. So my bad, I'll have to fix this one quickly. Just give me 1 second. Because this is not right. Oops, sorry. I might have to stop the presentation for that. Apologies for that. Okay, so let's take these examples one by one, inshallah. So we go back to the book. In the case of the sufficient or al-waqf al-kafi, obviously the tam, we discussed that just now, which is very similar to the real start. The kafi is where you have some relationship in the meaning, but the grammar is not connected, such as the example in Surah Hud as well, which is إني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم أليم. And you stop, that's the end of an ayah. Then you have فقال الملأ الذين كفروا. Now this one, if you check the meaning it has a continuation here. So you can start from here if you are reading within the same session or the same recitation. But if you're starting the Quran right now, like in the salah, in the first rak'ah of the salah, or if you're reading in a public event, so you cannot start from فقال الملأ. الذين كفروا, because now you know people don't know who are these disbelievers. So you have to start from where the meaning uh, is starting for the whole subject. And the acceptable start is when you have a word that has a connection with the word with the verse or the words before it, whether in meaning or in grammar. And you can, even if you stop on it accidentally, you have to go back and read from before that. So the example is والذي جاء بالصدق وصدق به. There's a la sign which you shouldn't stop. If you stopped on وجاء به أولئك, then you go back and say أولئك هم المتقون. So you have to go back and read. And obviously the qabih, the ugly one, which is page 214, that's the one where you stop on something which will change the meaning or will send a wrong meaning. Such as the verse from Surah Al-Baqarah, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Stopping on, for example, في الدنيا. Then in this case, you missed the meaning of the verse which has في والآخرة as well. Now, in terms of the testing one, so that's purely when, again, with your teacher or your ustad, and he's trying to um, see if you know how to stop on that word or if it's how it's written. So we have some examples in both pages 214, 215. So I'm going to do those once I answer. I think there's a question here. You think that knowing whether the starting is perfect, adequate, sufficient requires an understanding of what you're reciting. Now, of course, that's the case, Brother Ghaliz. However, that's why we have the signs of the waqf. So the signs of the waqf would help you with the ibtida as well. Yeah. So if you're starting from a beginning of an ayah, that's always good. If you're starting the salah, then make sure that you're starting from a subject. Now, if you're reading by yourself, it's different from reading in a congregation, of course. So if you're reading in a congregation, you're leading the congregation, then you need to start from somewhere where it's a whole subject altogether. You cannot start from a middle of a subject for sure, because that will mislead people to understand a wrong meaning to what the ayahs have intended to. Yeah. Yeah. Jazakallah khair. Now, so for the testing ones, so if you follow me on 214, these are words that's written. For example, the first one is ثم ليقطع. ثم ليقطع. Now, if I start from the word ليقطع, I cannot start with a second letter. Arabic language, we studied that before multiple times. You said we cannot start with a letter which has sukun or jazm. It has to start from a haraka. So in this case, we're adding a kasra to the word ليقطع, right? So that's one of the testing, cases is where they tell you to start from this word. How are you going to read it? Same thing with وأصحاب الأيكة. If you start with الأيكة, so you have to make a fatha here. بئس الاسم. If you start from the word الاسم, then obviously there's two options for reading it. The first one is الاسم, or the second way is lism, which means we're adding kasra for the lam. قل اللهم. If you start from it, you have to say اللهم. الذي تؤمن. If you start with it, you have to say تؤمن. تؤمن. Right. إن امرؤ. If you start with it, you have to say امرؤ. عيسى بن مريم. ابن مريم. So you're adding kasra for the alif. وإن امرأة. You start with it, you say امرأة. أن امشوا. You start with it saying امشوا. ثم قضوا. You start by saying اقضوا. فقالوا ابنوا. You start with it by saying ابنوا. في السماوات ائتوني. If you start with the after the في السماوات, then you say ائتوني. And that's a very common one because there is a sign of waqf here. So many people reach to the في السماوات إيتوني. If you start from that, you cannot say إئتوني because that will be two sakin hamza, one after the other. So you say إيتوني. Yeah, so these are all special cases. Yani, hopefully, if you stick to the rules of tajweed, apart from that special example I gave you in the end, you shouldn't end up requiring knowing this. It's just the last one because there is a sign of stopping before it, just before it. So it's good to remember. That's how you read it. E2ni. Now, before I move for the next subject, any questions, brothers? That's good. Okay. Now let's talk about the next subject, which is الروم الإشمام. So within the same subject of stopping and starting, um, obviously the original Arabic letters, they have something called i'rab, right? And the i'rab is basically changing the haraka of the last letter of a word, uh, depending on its location within the sentence, right? So these are things that i'rab is coming from the word Arab. So that's how the Arabic people speak. They add a haraka. So the fa'il has dhamma, the maf'ul bihi has fatha, and so on and so forth. So these harakat, uh, they were originally pronounced all the time, right? But for easiness, the Arabs started over time dropping them from the end of the word. So that's why they ended up stopping at a sukun, at a jazm. So if you say al-alamin, you stop on jazm, sukun, yeah? However, there was still some cases of recitation where we have to show that last haraka, which is not pronounced. So we have, in this case, we have three types of stopping on a word. The first type, which is the normal one that we're used to, and you can always just stick to this one. So the other two are optional. You could choose to do them or not do them. The first one is, we call it a rawm. Now, a rawm is basically to lower the voice when stopping at a dhamma or a kasra. So only for these two, not on fatha. So that most of the sound disappears, but there's still a hint of it. The example would be if you say the word نستعين الرحيم الدين الفيل, right? So that's a special way of recitation which you're not definitely, it's optional, but some people read with the rawm, yeah. The ishmam, however, is closing the lips. It's derived from the word smell, right? From shem. So I smell the perfume. That's why you close your lips like this on the whenever there is a dhamma, you know, that is coming in the end of the word that you didn't pronounce. So the way you do it, it has no effect on the sound. A blind person wouldn't be able to tell that you did it. Such as if you say نستعين like this. After you finish the noon, you close your lips. يا شعيب أليم like this. Yeah. So we do this. If you notice the difference between this one and the previous one is I'm sticking to the hukum. So when there is mad arad للسكون in the end, I'm doing the full med and then I'm doing the ishmam. While in the case of Raum, I'm not doing this. Why? Because the Raum takes the hukum of the haraka itself. I'm doing a portion of a haraka, which means I'm still doing the letter with a haraka, right? So that's why in the case of Raum, you can do that. So the origin in the Qur'an of Imam Hafs is that it's always the Rawm is always and Ishmam is always in the end of the word. There is only one location when there is Rawm and Ishmam in the middle of a word, which is in the word Ta'manna in Surah Yusuf, which we discussed before. So this one you could read it with Rawm, such as تأمننا على يوسف. So what I did with the first noon, I made it short and quick. like short in terms of the volume. Sorry, low in terms of volume and short in terms of time. تأمننا like this. ما لك لا تأمننا على يوسف. The other قراءة is when you do it with the إشمام, which is ما لك لا تأمنا على يوسف. So you do it after the shadda with the غنة, then you do the closing the lips. So that's the only case where it's in the middle of the word. Otherwise, it's always in the end. And as we said before, so this is completely optional, optional حكم. Now there are some special cases where you're not allowed to do Rom or Ishmam. So in this table, which you can see a version of it in page 223 in the book. So I'm gonna skip these pages because genuinely, like, it's more than that. So what's in the book, you need more than that actually, because there are lots of other cases. But the summary of it is in page 222 and 223. So the word that ends with a sukun asli, original sukun, that means it's not sukun because of stopping. The word itself is written like this. فلا تنهر. If I continue, فلا تنهر وأما أما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. You still stop on the ra even if you continue. The ra has original sukun. So in this case, the only way you can stop on this word is by sukun only because it has original sukun. However, if it ends with a fatha, if it ends with a fatha, then also you have only sukun because you cannot do rom and you cannot do ishmam. Yeah. So you cannot say هنالك. You cannot say that, right? So it becomes هنالك. That's it. If you stop on a word which has a kasra or tanween kasr, such as الرحيم or حاسد, if you stop on it, then you can either do it with a sukun, which means you do it with a full med, and then you after that do sukun, or you can do it with also rom, which is a full med with a kasra, a portion of a kasra. So this one becomes ar-rahim. That's with sukun, and ar-rahimi, right? So in this case, with the rom, you don't do the med, right? As we said. Hopefully, I didn't say that opposite way, but you got the point. So when you do the haraka, that means you're not stopping. So the ruling for the med disappears. حاسد, حاسدي. The one which ends with a dhamma or tanween al-rafa', this one has three options. You can stop with a sukun, you can stop with a rom, and you can stop with the ishmam. The example is له الحمد, له الحمد. So this one with sukun qalqala. له الحمد. That's with the rom. The ishmam له الحمد. سميع. That's sukun. سميع. That's with the rom. And then you do the ishmam. سميع. Like this. And the last one is the one which has tanween and nasb. This one becomes the maddul iwad, right? So alima, like this. So the only thing which is added from these pages, which is a new thing for you guys in the course, is the rom and the ishmam, which is, as I said, these are optional things. You might have not heard anyone in your life reading like this, but this is, an option that's available in the qira'ah of Imam Hafs and Asim.
Can I have a question?
Yes, sure.
So for Fatha,
Yes,
you cannot have Rome.
yes,
So it's only Kasra and Dhamma.
yes.
Oh,
Yeah. So كسر النظر. So Imam al-Jazari say, وحاذر الوقف بكل الحركة إلا إذا رمتف بعض الحركة إلا بفتح أو بنصب وأشم إشارة بالضم في رفع وضم. They're saying that's the only the fatha and the nasb. In both these cases, there is no rom on it. No rom and no ishmam. Yes.
Jazakallah.
وإياكم إن شاء الله. Any more questions, brothers? As I said, there are lots of cases. If you go back into the pages, you see the ta'u ta'nith, different types of ta'u ta'nith. You will see mim al-jama'a, different types of mim al-jama'a. So there are lots of details for it, which I'm choosing to skip, inshallah, and you don't have to worry about it for the test. But if you want more on this, I'm more than happy on one-to-one basis to take you through it. But I feel that it's a little bit too advanced for the course. Now, after that, we have the subject of the 7 alifs, right? So these 7 alifs, these are special cases in the Quran, which you will see if you open your Mus'haf on any one of these cases, you will see a circle, a round circle on top of these alifs, harful alif. So these ones, the special case in these, in the Qira'ah of Imam Hafs and Asim from the way of Shatibiyyah, is that when you read them, when you stop on them, and omitted when you're connecting them. So the first alif is the word ana in the whole Quran, right? Such as, for example, the word in Surah Al-Kafirun, وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ مَا عَبَدتُّمْ. This one, أَنَا. That's how it's read. But if you stop on it, then you say وَلَا أَنَا, like this. You read the alif. The second case is the word lakinna in Surah Al-Kahf, because this one is lakin ana. Originally, it's 2 words. Lakin ana, and then the Arabs, to simplify it, because they use it a lot, they made it lakinna. Lakinna huwa Allahu Rabbi. Lakin ana huwa Allahu Rabbi. That's the original syntax for it. So this one, also the same thing. If you continue, it becomes lakinna huwa Allahu Rabbi. If you stop on it, it becomes lakinna, like this. The third one is the word الظنون. It's actually, there are three words here: الظنون, الرسول, السبيل. All of them are in Surah Al-Ahzab, right? So the 3 of them are in Surah Al-Ahzab. They are written with the alif like this, with a circle. الرسول, السبيل. Right? Same thing applies. وَتَظُنُّونَ بِاللَّهِ الظُّنُونَ هُنَالِكَ. If you stop on it, الظُّنُونَ. وَأَطَعْنَا الرَّسُولَ وَقَالُوا الرَّسُولَ فَأَضَلُّونَ السَّبِيلَ رَبَّنَا السَّبِيلَ. Like this. Now, the 6th one is the word salasil in Surah Al-Insan. So this one, Surah Al-Insan, salasil, you will see here that it has the shape of the salasil. Oh, did I skip one? As-sabila, yeah. As-salasil. The circle shape is different, right? It's different from the other one. If you open your Mus'haf, you will see it's slightly different in terms of shape. Why? Because this one has both options. You can stop on it, salasila, or you can stop on it as salasil. Both options are available. If you open the end of your Mus'haf, you will see in the comment section, you'll see that this word could be read both ways. And then the last word is the word qawarira in Surah Al-Insan. Right? So this one, when you say كانت قوارير من فضة. See this one? So this one, there are 2 qawarira, right? 2 qawarira here. The first one has a slightly longer circle, so it's like an oval shape. While this one has this sukoon, like circle one. Why? Because this one is the 7 alif one, this one is not the 7 alif one. So this is علامة الحذف, we call it, right? Which means this one you read it قوارير من فضة, like this. Or if you stop on it, you say قوارير, right? Like this. But this one is, if you stop on it, you stop on قوارير, like this. So these 7 alifs is part of the subject of stopping on words. So it's good to know how to stop on these ones.
A question, Sheikh.
Yes, حبيبي.
إنه ظن لن يحور.
لن يحو إنه yeah.
ظن لن يحور.
How was it written?
uh, I don't remember. Let me open the مصحف.
I think it's written with a ra. It's most probably written with a ra.
من سورة الانشقاق.
Yes.
uh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the verses before it all have ra.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, this one is good catch. Jazakallah khair. Yeah, so these are special cases, and only you need to know like if you stop on them, but sometimes you don't have to stop. But if it's in the end of an ayah, then you need to stop on it with a reading the alif. Now on the same tone of stopping and starting, now we have the linking hamza, hamzatul wasl. So we have two types of hamza in Arabic language. The first one is we call it hamzatul wasl, the connecting hamza or the linking hamza, and the other one we call it hamzatul qata', hamzatul qata', which is translated to the disconnecting hamza. Now, hamzatul wasl, if you open the Quran and in the Uthmanic script specifically, which is the Mus'haf al-Madina, and the Urdu Mus'haf might have slight differences here. So I'm talking purely on the Uthmanic Mus'haf. It has the tip of harf al-sad, the beginning of harf al-sad, coming from the word silah. Silah means connect. So, or connection. So this one, it comes in the beginning of a word. Now, which word is that? So it comes on verbs, it comes on nouns, and also it comes on articles such as the alif lam, right? So the first type we talk about now, inshallah, is the verb. Imam al-Jazari say, وابدأ بهمز الوصل من فعل بضم إن كان ثالث من الفعل يضم. So to explain it in very simple terms, you look at the verb. You look at the third letter of the verb. If the third letter of the verb has a dhamma, then you start hamzatul wasl with a dhamma. Of course, if you continue, then you don't pronounce it. We know this, all of us, right? But if you're starting from the word which has hamzatul wasl, then you have to put a haraka on it. Why we have to put a haraka? Because we cannot start with a sukun. So that haraka, we have to understand which one is that. If it has a dhamma on the third letter, then we have to start with a dhamma. وَكْسِرُهُ حَالَ الْكَسْرِ وَالْفَتْحِ, which means if you have a kasra or a fatha, then you have to do kasra on it. Right? So let's look at the examples in the fi'l. The first fi'l, قُلْ نَدْخُلُ. قُلْ نَدْخُلُ. Now, if I start from the word udkhulu, then I put a dhamma on it. Why? Because the third letter has a dhamma, khu. So it becomes udkhulu, ud'u, u'budu, uskun. If you start from that word, then you say u'budullaha. You don't say i'budullaha. You say u'budullaha. You don't say iskun. You say uskun. If you continue, it becomes different. قل نسكن. Right? But if you say uskun, you start with it, then you have to put dhamma. But if the third letter has a kasra, such as the word irji'u, yasbiru, or if it has fatha, such as ibtagha, ikhtalaf, istakbar, or if it has something which we call dhamma arida. Dhamma arida means incidental dhamma. So this is not original dhamma similar to the ones we discussed above, but these happen incidentally because of something which is purely the waw of the plural, right? So this one, for example, the verb is imshi. Imshi means walk. When you say to plural of people, then you add waw with the alif. This alif is the indicator that this waw is plural waw. Then it becomes imshu. You don't say umshu, you say imshu. Although the third letter has a dhamma, but this dhamma is not original. This dhamma was purely added because of the waw after it. Same thing with iqudu. This one is E2. We discussed that before. We said if you have the hamza second letter this way, then you make easing for it. E2. right? So this is in summary how to start with the letter if you do it on the verb, right? Hamzat al-wasl on the verb. But you also need to remember that there are other rules for it. This one applies perfectly for the Quran. But if you talk about wider Arabic language, then there are slightly more detailed rules. But this one applies perfectly for the Quran. So if you stick with this rule, you're completely safe. All right. So in the book, actually, on the end of page 226, Sheikh Ayman has made it very simple. There are only 5 verbs in the Quran where these waw alif complication is there, the incidental dhamma, right? Which is the word ibnu, imshu, iqdu, itu, ituni, right? These ones. Now, when it comes to the noun after the verb, the noun, you have again 2 types. You have one which is we call it qiyasi, and the one we call it sama'i. In both of them, you have kasra, right? So if you say istikbar, istighfar, ibn, ibnat, imra'at, اثنتين, imru, اثنتين. This one is اثنتين, اثنين. There's اثنين. This is mistake. So اثنتين and اثنين and ism. All of them has kasra. With the noun, it's always kasra. And the last case, which is the huruf, the letters, which is al in the beginning of a word. So الذي, التي, العليم, الحكيم, الرحمن. All of them has fatha on them. Now there is a small hint in page 227 in the book, in the bottom line. It talks about the word imru. This one is very interesting because it comes in the ra, it comes in different forms following the haraka of the ra, following what happens after that. So you have imra'a saw, or you have in imru'un halak, or you have likulli imri'im minhum. So the haraka of the ra follows the letter after it. It's a unique case. That's the only word in the Quran which the haraka changes based on the i'rab of the word. So that's Hamzatul Wasl. Now, Hamzatul Qata', the disconnecting Hamza. This one comes and it has the tip of the Ain on top of it, right? So this one, again, this one originally from the Arabic language, it was not written, was only added at the time of Al-Khalil bin Ahmed al-Farahidi, the Hamza, this Hamza, right? It was normally just written on the letter. That's why you still see the remnants of that. So that, for example, here, yu'minun, you see the waw written with the Hamza on it, right? Other Qurra, for example, not Imam Hafs, they read this yu'minun. They say it yu'minun, but Imam Hafs reads it yu'minun, right? So these Hamzatul Wasl, Hamzatul Qata', sorry, they always come in the beginning or in the middle or in the end of a word, right? There are special cases in the case of Hamzatul Qata'. The first one, it's not mentioned here. So if you look at your book, page 229, in the second half, this one talks about if two Hamza meet, the second one of them is got sukoon, such as the word a'dam. What we do normally, we change the haraka of the second one and we make it adam, right? And that's what we call it maddul badal, because we cannot say adam, two Hamza after each other. Or the same thing, u'tu, it becomes utu. And the same thing with imanan, it becomes imanan, right? So these are special cases when two Hamzas meet, the second one becomes sukoon. Page 230, we have another one, which is something we just discussed it now. If you have Hamzatul Wasl, if you have a linking wasl hamza precedes a hamza of qata' sakina, then we substitute when starting the hamzatul qata' sakina for a mad letter similar to the vowel of the linking hamza. The examples are, the first example is الذي اؤتمن. الذي اؤتمن. If you start from the word اؤتمن, it becomes اؤتمن, and then the hamza becomes, we make easing for it, it becomes اؤتمن. في السماوات ائتوني becomes ائتوني, then after that becomes ايتوني. So you read it, if you start with that, it becomes ايتوني, like this. لقاء نأتي becomes ايتي. يقول ذن لي becomes إذن لي. So these are just examples of when these two hamzas, hamzatul wasl in the beginning and hamzatul qata' after it, which has sukun, then you have to make easing for it. The other special case is when you have the questioning hamza. So the example we have is iftara, then you add hamzatul questioning in the beginning, you say aftara. Istakbarta, then you ask the question on it, you say astakbarta, and so on and so forth. And the last one, which is the slide on the screen, is in 3 words, right? So these are only 3 words in the whole Quran. The first one is the questioning of Hamza questioning, and then you have al-Dhakarain, or al-an, or Allah. Now, what's the difference with the previous one? The previous one has a kasra on it, right? So the iftara, istakbarta, becomes astakbarta. But if it enters on something which has a fatha, al-dhakarain, or Allah, or al-an, and then you have a hamza coming before that, then you cannot do the same thing. Otherwise, it becomes, you enter the same thing. It becomes al-an, Allah, and al-dhakarain. So instead, what we do here, we have 2 hukum. The first one is we make this mad lazim, either kalimi muthaqqal or mukhaffaf, such as if you read this one, it becomes قُلْ أَذَّكَرَيْنِ حَرَّمْ. This one becomes mad lazim kalimi muthaqqal. Or you say الآن وقد. This one also lazim kalimi mukhaffaf because there is no shadda. And the last example is Allahu, right? This one also muthaqqal. So you either do it with the med like this, or the other face we read it with the tasheel al-hamza. So you read it like this. You say الذكرين الآن Allahu. So those of you in my class, which we read Surah Yunus, you would have experimented on this. But the way you do it is you pronounce the full hamza, the first one. The second one, you just do the haraka. So you don't say الذكرين. You don't say You don't make tahqiq for both hamza. No. You do The second one is just the fatha. You don't say it as a ha. You don't say aha. You don't say ahadhakaraini. That's wrong. No. You say الذكرين الآن Allahu, right? It's only these 3 words in the Quran. You can always read them with the med only, and then happy life after that. But if you want to understand, then it has actually 2 rules, 2. And when you do your ijazah, for example, your teacher will most probably ask you to read it both ways. You read it both ways so that he knows that you can read it with the tasheel or with the med. Good, mashallah. So I think the next subject is something which is more of a FYI, I would say, and you're not necessarily going to be tested on it. So I'll go through it, inshallah, and we'll see how much we can do. But this is the stages of the development of the writing and the vowelization in the Quran, right? This photo that you're seeing here is from a very old manuscript How we know that? We know from multiple indicators. The first one is that there was no i'rab, there was no harakat, fath, dhamma, kasra, and also there were no dots on the letters. So the letters had no dots on them, no fatha, no dhamma, no kasra. Can anyone read this page?
قل أعوذ برب الفلق.
Yeah, it's easy, right? What about this one? Someone else? Anyone?
قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس.
MashaAllah, beautiful, yeah. So it starts with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. You see, they drop the line. They don't have enough space or paper. They don't have any tools for aligning things, right? And you see, قل أعوذ, there's no hamza. أعوذ, there's no dot on the dal. There's no fatha, no dhamma, no kasra. بربي, you see the بربي how it's written. الفلق, the fa and the qaf both the same. من شر ما خلق, same thing, right? ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب. وقب, you see the waqab, إذا واو here and the qaf bala here. So they were at that time, they would put one letter on one line and the rest of the word on the second line. But then they exhausted half of the line for that, right? That's definitely not efficient, you know. So anyways, that is the story that we need to understand is how this whole thing started. So obviously the Arabic language was a spoken language. And for many, many years, they were just speaking the language, not necessarily writing it. And then when they started writing the language, they borrowed the script from other nations which are coming from the northern part of the Arabic peninsula or the Arabic island, yeah, the Shubh al-Jazeera Peninsula. So some people say they got it from Al-Hira. Now those people, their script was limited, so they didn't have enough letters to the pronounced letters in Arabic language. So that's why they end up using the same letter for the same form, the same shape for multiple letters, such as the fa and the qaf, right? Fa and the qaf, they initially without dots, they look exactly like the same. The ba, noon, ta, tha, ba, noon, ta, tha, they all look the same, right? The ta, va, sad, dad, all of them, all four look the same initially. Ain, ghain, same thing, right? So, and it was always like that. So when people read the Quran, they know it from memory, like you now, right? You knew these verses because you memorized it, right? So you just looked at it, you picked up only maybe one or two words, and that's it. The rest of the surah is in your head. So it's just a way of reminding you. The problem started happening after that when more people started coming into Islam and they're not necessarily have a proper Arabic language. So they started having problems with the fatha, with the dhamma, with the kasra letters coming on top of each other's. So it was until the time of Ali ibn Abi Talib where he asked one of his companions, his name is Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali. Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali died in the year 69. And he asked him to do i'rab. He said, let's do something for the people so that they ينحون نحوه, right? So that people can read towards it. That's why the word nahu is used, which is how to use the i'rab for the letters, fatha, dhamma, kasra. Initially, he declined the offer. He said, I don't want to touch the Quran. I don't want to add anything to the Quran. It was very sacred for them not to touch the Quran and change anything to it. But one day he was walking in the street and then he had overheard people reading the Quran and saying, Inna Allah bari'um min al-mushrikina. The ayah says, وَرَسُولُهُ. So the lam has a dhamma on it. But he heard them saying, وَرَسُولِهِ. Right? Now, that dhamma kasra changed the meaning completely. Because now if you say وَرَسُولِهِ, that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distanced himself from his prophet. Right? While it's the original meaning is Allah and his prophet, they both distance themselves from the disbelievers or the polytheists. So when he heard this, he went back to Ali ibn Abi Talib and he said, look, I'm gonna fix it. Just give me someone to help me. And then he started adding the harakat. So how were the harakat added? I don't have it here, but if you look at your book, page number Page number. Let's take page number 236. 236. You see these photos? There are red dots. Can you see it? Red dots. So these red dots were put by Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali. He specifically chose a different color. He specifically chose a different color so he can distinguish this from the black ink writing which came from the time of Uthman ibn Affan. So he added these dots in red. What are these dots? These are fatha dhamma kasra. Initially it was dots. The fatha is a dot on top of the letter, the kasra is a dot below the letter, and the dhamma is a dot beside the letter. If you have two dots, that means it's a tanween. So two dots on the top, that means tanween al-fatah. Two dots on the below, tanween al-kasr, and two dots on the side, that's tanween al-dhamm. Then after that comes a time where another Imam, his name is Nasr ibn Asim al-Laythi. So he died year 90. He added the dots to distinguish the ba from the ta from the tha, the bad from the sad from the and so on and so forth. Initially they were just dashed lines. So if you see in the book page 233, it was actually dashes like this. But then over time, people changed the dots, the dhamma fatha kasra dots, into harakat. So initially it was a slanted alif, which is the fatha, slanted ya, which over time took the shape of a kasra, and a mini waw, because the dhamma is a small waw. So over time, these things changed, and then he was able to use the dots for the letters. However, until our time, if you open a mushaf from Morocco or Libya or Algeria, you will see that they are using a slightly different dotting system, mainly for four letters, which are the fa, the qaf, the nun, and the ya. They are combined in a word yunfiq. So these four letters, if they come in the end of a word, they don't put any dot on it. Why did they do this? In their thinking is you shouldn't add anything unnecessary. So if these are clear, you don't have to put them, right? But the people from the east, not from the west, so Iraq, Egypt, all of these countries, they unified the whole thing. So even if it's in the end and it's unnecessary dots for the ya, they still put it because then in this case everything is uniform. So that's the story of how these letters evolved. There are lots of details in it, like for example, how the letter kaf has evolved. It used to be like for example, Malik. See the kaf of Malik in the end? This is not how we write it nowadays, right? This one here. Let me highlight it. This is not how we write Malik nowadays. You see the kaf? That's how what we write on top of the kaf. It's a small kaf, right? So if you open page 236, you see this. We call it al-kafu zanadiyah, kafu zanadiyah, which is written on top of the kaf. It's not a hamza, it's a mini kaf. So if you look at your Quran, you see the hamza in the beginning of the word. It has the tip of the ayn. This one is a mini kaf written on top of a lam shape. So the kaf and lam are sisters in this case. Also, we discussed the shape of the hamza that was added later by Al-Khalil bin Ahmad al-Farahidi, who died at year 175. So until in the 150, 40, 70, he died in 170. So until that time, people didn't write the hamza. They were pronouncing the hamza, but they wouldn't write it. Page 240 shows you how the tanween has evolved. So you have waw and noon, and then the noon was inverted and put on top of the waw. So it becomes un. That's the izhar tanween. Un. The sukoon, the symbol of the sukoon, it's the tip of harful kha, or harfu in the Western way, it's a circle, which is the meme of jazm. So The tip of the kha without the dot is standing for the word khafif. Khafif means light. So you don't say this is sukoon basically. The sukoon symbol of the sukoon is the tip of the kha without the dot in the Eastern Eastern Quranic scripts. The shadda is actually the tip of the harf sheen without the dots. Tip of which coming from the word shadid, which is coming from the shidda. Then we just discussed the sili before. The next one, page 242, actually talks about al-med, right? So al-med used to be the word med or mid, means make it longer. Then over time, it became that shape of the med. So you could see here in the photo, page 224, you'll see an example where it used to be like mid, right? And then over time, it became the symbol of the med. Yeah. So this is how the writing of the Mus'haf evolved over time. It's very important to remember the signs of the Izhar and the Ikhfa. So that's in page 245 and 200 until 200 and 247. So the signs of the Nun, Sakin, and Tanween. We discussed all of that before, so I'm not going to repeat it. And we have a special symbol for the word, the two words, ta'manna and majraha, which is pronounced majreha and ta'manna. These two, they have special symbols in the Quran. So yeah, I'm going to stop here because obviously the rest is just for how things are written, which we already discussed. Sheikh Ayman Suwaid, he's putting another page in his book just to discuss, memorization of the Quran. So in summary, he's saying that you need to focus on the intention, make dua from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you with the memorization, learning the correct pronunciation, which is hopefully what we've done in this course, and do not compare your memorization journey with others, otherwise you get disappointed, or you might get overexcited with yourself. In both cases, it's not a good thing. You can also reduce distraction like social media, which is, gives you huge advantage on others, and have a proper plan. And more important than all of this is that you need to have a sheikh who can listen to your recitation. So with this, brothers, we're finishing the book, alhamdulillah, and we're giving a couple of weeks for you to practice on the lectures, all of the YouTube content, and also the book itself. I am always available. Anything you need, you can call me. If I didn't pick up, text me, send me a voice message. Anything you need to clarify before the test, please feel free to reach out. And alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah.
Just one question, Sheikh.
Yes,
Regarding the final exam, I understand there is final exam that is theoretical.
yes.
And that's like done online.
Yes.
Is there no final exam like for like practical?
Yeah, there is both, inshallah.
Because I
Both.
think on in the WhatsApp group there was only mention of the
Theory.
theoretical one. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So only the theory, because the practical will be done separately. I need to sort out actually independent teacher to help me with reviewing things, or maybe we do it as a committee. So I'm discussing with the teachers from the other groups to see we might be able to do it as a committee, inshallah.
Exactly.
Yeah, the main intention for the practical one is to obviously listen to the recitation, and then we'll ask some questions as well related to the theory. So for the most part, the encouragement we have is that we want people to be able to explain the rulings, not just doing them. بارك الله فيك. جزاكم الله خير brothers. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك ونتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.